that slow. Okay, I think we're on. All right, everyone. Welcome to Money, Sex, and God. My name is Genevieve. I am so excited for our guest this week. We have Calvin Witcher joining us, who is a prophet. He's a spiritual teacher, a medium. Also, I'm just reading your bio. You appeared on, what was it, a TV show?
Yeah, it was a TV show and also a documentary that was on several networks, mostly in the UK and Canada, but also it appeared on a couple of distribution channels here in the States too. So yeah, I actually have another one coming out here soon.
So exciting. And you spoke about like Prince Harry and all of that. So Calvin, to say the least, is someone who's living in his mission, someone who's living in what he's meant to do on the planet. And those of you that know me and you know what I stand for, I'm all about just doing it anyway, like showing up, doing exactly what you're meant to do, being in your purpose, being in your passion. What I really love about you, Calvin, is that, you know, you don't have, maybe you've had in the past, but you don't have any shame around just saying, like, this is who I am. Like, this is, I can, yes, I'm a medium. Yes, I do profit readings. Like, yes. And I don't know, for me, I get very like, oh no, is my woo stuff a little too woo? So I really wanted you on because I love how you're really claiming that. So thank you for being here, Calvin.
Thank you so much for having me here, and thank you everyone. I don't have it up right now, but I'm sure people are watching. Thank you so much for joining us. We so appreciate it, and yeah, we had a few Mercury glitches, but I think we
I don't know why I decided to do this like in the Mercury retrograde. That was very silly. Maybe just to prove that we don't have to be slaves to it, you know?
absolutely, absolutely. But you know, it's very interesting. I can't say I have always had this level of, unapologetic expression, as I would probably say, if I were being completely just honest and transparent. I used to be a complete dork and nerd, and used to get picked on in school. Well, I guess in the community too. So I was that. Actually, everyone used to call me Steve Urkel. So if anyone ever watched, I think it was Family Matters,
Yeah.
you get the reference. And I literally looked like him too. I had the big Coke bottle glasses. I had a really weird voice and accent, really country, and yeah, it was very Steve Urkel. And then around, I think it was seventh grade. Um, yeah, it was like sixth or seventh grade or so. I ended up getting contacts, and I kind of really changed a lot of my personality. That happened to also coincide with a lot of the spiritual growth and awareness I was coming into. And yeah, things shifted around that time. I think, yeah, it was definitely seventh grade. And then everyone laughed and said I went from Steve Urkel to Stefan Urkel. If you watch the movie of the show, you get the reference. And I would say that was probably the time that I started to own into who I am a lot more, even though still at the time I was very much in the church space.
Wow.
And very much still religious side of things. And so it was not even
Yeah.
at all accepted.
And
And so
I'll look at you on a Money, Sex, and God series, right? So like,
and they were on the Money, Sex, and God series and, talking everything about whatever,
yeah.
doing it and having fun with it. So thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I would love to thank you for telling us a little bit about you. I can totally see the Steve Urkel. I love little you. Oh my God, he's so cute. I already know I love him. So cute. I would love, the title of the series is Money, Sex, and God, right? And I know that you've spoken about all of these things. Um,
Yep.
and the one that I see you speak the most about is just God in general and spirituality, and that is you. That's your channeling. That's how you do it. I do it through sex. You do it through God, and they're all the same. So, right. So I'm curious.
Right.
If you could give our viewers a little taste of what what does that mean? Where are you with everything in spirituality? What is, and really the point of that question really is for the people that are watching, what do we want to gift them with in terms of their relationship to God, in terms of how they see things? Because I know, similar to me, you have a way of relating to spirituality that is a little different than maybe how the mainstream is seeing it, and
Right.
it's a liberation there. So, just that wasn't really much of a question, but whatever comes up.
Sure, absolutely. It's interesting because I hear this conversation a lot in religion and spirituality, on a lot of different levels, whether it's a church environment or a coven. The concepts of God and the universe and source and the all mind, whatever, are always an interesting conversation. Now, my background is Christianity, very unapologetic about that, although I do a lot of other things now in that space. I do magic, and, I will talk about a lot of aspects of spirituality. I still use the terms God and spirit, mostly because that's my native tongue.
Right.
And so that's just me. Right. I also am very much a proponent of how the Tao Te Ching looks at this term called God, which is that if you can name it, it's not it.
Right.
That, in a nutshell, that's my version of the Tao Te Ching when it talks about the name, the great name. And so I really view God as this thing, this energy, this expression that is literally everything. However, I do believe that we as humans are always striving for something that's beyond us, beyond our natural expression, into something that's a little more super, something that is a little more extraordinary, or sometimes just that aha moment. So I really started looking at God as anything that surpasses this human experience. That everything in my life right now, I'm at the time of shooting this, I'm 36, I'll be 37 next month, and less than 30 days. I have a lot of human experience, things that I have cultivated, I have created, I have gone through. It's been my human journey. I say that's very much my human self. I know it like the back of my hand. Right. And I define it.
Right.
Me.
Right. In a box, it's labeled.
I put it in a box. I categorize it. And I don't think that that's bad. I think that we all, and I say this a lot of times, like, I don't have a problem with judgments and labels and distinctions. And because to me, that's a part of this human experience, is to break things down and to say a cat is a cat, a dog is a dog, a woman is a woman, a male is a male, which I know we're going to talk about this when it comes to sexuality. So I actually don't have a problem with that. I don't subscribe in a sense that everything is the same.
Right.
I say that we are all interconnected. I also don't necessarily always say we are one. I see that we are distinctions of a greater whole. And so with me, when it comes to God, I say, okay, this is the human self. Like, you are you with all of your human experiences. And then there's this thing that's outside of that, that we start to, have these ideas, and we say, well, where did that idea come from? Where did that thought come from? Where did this knowledge come from? These things that I know I couldn't, in my own human experience, training, learning, going through, I wouldn't know that. Right. And whenever I get that information or have those experiences, I say that's God. And it's a way of that which is not in my human experience connecting with my human identity. And so to me, that's inescapable. And call it God, call it source, call it, some nebulous power, call it energy, call it whatever you want to. I think that we use these names as a way of identifying and having a connection with it. So I usually allow people to have their forms, whether Shiva, Lakshmi, Odin, Zeus, call it whatever you want to, Buddha, or just simply energy. Right. I think when you can find God or spirit in a way that connects with you, run with it. I think it's great. Some people like Jesus, not opposed to Jesus.
Right.
Some people, or maybe Luciferian, and that's how they connect with that particular archetype.
Yes.
Totally fine with that. I think that all faith, interesting enough, all faith and spirituality at some level is really asking for us to stretch the human experience, stretch how you've always limited yourself in thought, in action. And because of that, I say that's all great. That's all wonderful. I think all faith and spirituality is really this search for more meaning and more power and more understanding. It gives a level of clarity to this human experience, all of which I think is a good thing. We do it in different ways,
Right.
and I
Right.
think that's okay. Even people that are humanists or agnostic or atheists, there's still a search for some level of understanding,
Right.
which connects us. And I
Right.
think that that's great. It allows for us to not just go willy nilly and wander through this human experience. I think that sometimes what we lack in human connection, we seek in a faith connection. And either way, I think it's good.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. That's yes. Right. And I I love that you talked about the stretching, right? The stretching the human experience, because my experience, for me, I find God through sex, which we'll talk about in just a second. And
Yes.
right. And there's a stretching of my human experience that happens through that practice, that where I get to connect to God. And I've seen it over and over with clients as well. I think that in general, our potential of how well we can really connect the spirit is only like 2% of what's possible, right? And there are so many tools, right, to go there. So what are some of the, I mean, for me, it's through sex. What are some of the tools that you use, and you help with your clients to use in order to have that experience of stretching into the spiritual?
I love it's interesting. I tend to look at myself as very much a bridge of the secular and the sacred. So a lot with me, I tend to say, well, which bridge gets us there?
Mm.
And sometimes, like, I'm a practicing magician, very unapologetic about that. So where am I? So right here on my shelf, I have all of my, sages and herbs and candles and all kinds of goodies back there. And I also on that shelf, if you go like one level up, I have Bibles. I have the Holy Bible. I have the Quran. I have the Tao Te Ching. I have lots of different versions of scriptures and ancient texts, and I have a lot more in digital form. So I tend to look at a lot of my practice as what is needed for this particular time for
Mm-hmm.
my particular client. So I have clients that are Christian. I'm like, listen, I can talk to you about Jesus all day. And then I have people that are more Buddhist or Hindu or pagan or occultic, and they're maybe, I don't know, they're Wiccan. I can have that conversation with you as well. And I have some that are atheists, and we don't even talk about those things, and that's okay. It's totally fine. I would say now my go-to is I like the mystery. I love the unknown. I love the exploration. I like the surprise. I like uncovering those areas that maybe have been hidden.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's a lot of the tie, even when it comes to like sex and sensuality, sexuality. It's really the places of vulnerability that even I sometimes have to ask myself, will you dare to go there? Will
Yep.
you dare to think that? And that's why I love, like, I go by prophet, which is, again, it's my cosmology. It's just how spirit has always spoke to me. Some people, although I make a distinction with it, some people will call that psychic. I am also a psychic medium. And so with me, it's interesting because I've said this on a couple of different occasions. Every time I do my work, I literally go into a space of agnosticism or atheism, where I literally say, well,
Whatever.
I don't believe this.
Right.
Give me a reason to believe this, even when I do my work. There's no human, logical, intellectual reasoning why I would know these things.
Yeah.
So I always, in a sense, although I work in spirituality, when I do that work, not coaching, when I'm doing readings and things like that, I always go back to a space of neutrality
Yeah.
and exploration. What do I need? And so I like a lot of some people say shadow work, going in deeper. Why are you having these issues in life? I think it's fun for me.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I like the other stuff. Like, I think you mentioned like meditation. I like it. But if you really ask me like where I get excited, I like the stuff like, ooh, that just showed up. That's a trigger. That's
Yeah.
a
I'm finding so many relations, and just hearing you talk between what I do in sex and what you do with spirituality. It's fascinating, because what I'm hearing you say is that there are so many different directions, right? The Bible, the Quran, I have all my herbs here too, right? Like it could be that. Right. They all point to one direction. And then once it points to that direction, the tools themselves kind of dissolve. And I'm finding the same thing when I work with in sex, that it's, people have different entry points to expand. And then we get to the place where there's just that bliss, and then it doesn't really matter what the tools are anymore, right? And it's really, right. What do I need in this moment right now to get myself aligned? So I think that's so cool. I'm seeing so many like, oh my God, that's the same thing.
Right. Absolutely. And I mean, even off of I tend to say like sensuality and sexuality, just for me, I love your distinction with that, but I tend to look at those as two separate things. But either way, yeah. I think that exploration allows for you to get the experience that you need. Yeah. And what I have found a lot of times is that people have one way of looking at something, and so they feel like the ecstasy, the experience is only going to come this particular way, which is fine. And then I tell people, you're going to go to sleep tonight and wake up tomorrow, hopefully, which means that you may have a different way of thinking about this. So you may need to be a little more open-minded in what is going to bring you pleasure. It's interesting. I feel like a lot of my work, especially in spirituality, I think arguably anyone that's in spirituality is a very sexual, sensual experience. It's extremely vulnerable. Yeah. It brings up issues and dynamics, or if we're talking clinical, it brings up needs.
Yeah.
With you that you say, that does not bring me pleasure the way it used to.
Right.
And so with me, it's an interesting dynamic. I feel that this will probably be a stretch for a lot of people, especially if they're religious. I think that most people are just having really bad sex with God. They have a bad relationship with God. It's very closed off. You're hiding your true needs and things that bring you pleasure versus actually saying, God, that no longer pleasures me.
Right.
What you're doing to me kind of feels uncomfortable. It feels weird. And people want to explore that. And my thing is to say, well, if your desire is to have a really intimate and connected relationship with God, you need to just be honest with that. Boo, I mean, what you're doing with your hands, your tongue, your words, your question, the lack of conversation, that doesn't serve me. Right. And I think if you look at it, we all look at it that way, it puts God in a whole different light. Because it's interesting, the things that people put up with and believe and practice with a lot of spiritual faiths, they would no more condone that on a human physical relationship. They just wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
They would defriend those people. They would get rid of those relationships. They would, ghost somebody and never call that person back again. They just wouldn't do it. So I take that perspective and say, listen, God is no different. I also believe that God is far beyond our human intellect. So God is, does not need Prozac. God does not need, Valium because it's dealing with anxiety about, I think something bad about it. It's just not that deep.
Right. Yes, it's not. So good. That's the best. And that's I got that. It's not that deep place through sex. But I hear you get it. It's not that deep place through here. It's the same thing, right? It's pointing in the same direction. And for me, I know when I'm most connected to God, spirit, whatever, I almost have this sense of like, it's all good, whatever, right? That's when I know I'm like in it and I'm rooted in it, because all the other little layers on top of it just start to fall away, right?
Right. And I think that that's healthy on a lot of different levels. So like, for instance, even in all the spirituality that I teach, there are some concepts that become challenging in the wrong way. Like, for instance, I don't really teach detachment a lot, although there are a lot of people in different faiths that teach detachment. I will teach detachment from a level of define the expectation that you're seeking. And a lot of times we have an issue in spirituality or relationships, and we need to detach from false expectations or really misaligned expectations. So I'll teach from that level. But I don't teach detachment when it comes to spirituality because I want you to be extremely attached to God.
Right.
So it seems weird for me to tell you, love God, love spirit. do your meditations, do your incantations, your prayers, your chanting, but don't be attached to it. That seems odd for
Right.
me.
Right.
Now, I will teach detachment when it comes to maybe negative relationships, and maybe you have a bad sex life or relationship with your spouse because of inappropriate or misaligned, you know,
Right.
rules, regulations, whatever. You need to detach from what you thought it should have been, and then reattach, recommit yourself to a different experience. So, but again, all that is very vulnerable. I mean, there are plenty of times, even with spirituality, I'm like, this is just stupid, God, just dumb. Just, this is dumb. Or there are times I say, I don't really like this.
Right.
This is not fun for me. And so, or I know some things are fun for me in spirituality. So I explore that process a little bit more. And so it is interesting. It's very vulnerable. I mean, you'd be well, you wouldn't be surprised, but many people would be surprised because Spirit says some crazy stuff to me. It's not always love and light. Sometimes it's like, you're not doing that correctly, and flip me over, turn me around. Let's go on the washing machine. It's very much like a different experience. Like, or if we related this even to sexuality and sensuality, you're in the same position every single time. That's boring.
Mm-hmm.
Pull out a whip, pull out some chains, pull out some, chocolate or something. And Spirit talks to me like that too. Like, listen, you pray the same way every single time.
Right.
You light the same incense every time. Shake it up, move it around a little bit.
Right.
So
yeah.
To me, that's a relationship.
Yeah, right. And my experience of Spirit is always like, just do life. Like when Spirit talks to me, Spirit's like, can you just like do things? Like just go out and like get your hands dirty. And like, I'll be working with the client. We'll be doing like a super intimate sexual session. And all of a sudden Spirit's like, talk to him about his dad. And I'm like, oh, fuck, I don't want to go there. Right.
Right.
But then Spirit's like, you got to do life. This is, get your hands in there, get in there, because otherwise we wouldn't be here. Like, it's the point of being.
Absolutely.
And I hear you in that. It's awesome. I want to switch over to talk a little bit about money, because not a lot of my people like to talk about money. Like, I don't get it often, and I love talking about money. And I know you've like mastered the game as I have. So let's go in. Let's give people.
I love money. I love money. Money loves me. I think everyone watching this right now, that should be your new affirmation. I love money and money loves me. Money is attracted to me. Mm-hmm. Money seeks me out. When money is lonely, money talks to me because other people ignore money. That needs to be your affirmation. You'd be surprised at things that shift when you stop looking at money as a negative thing. And I don't say that lightly because I grew up, and I'm sure this may have been some of your experience, and I'd love to hear about it. I grew up in a very religious system that taught money is the root of all evil, and you shouldn't seek money. And again, it's funny because that was on a religious context, but I hear that on a social and even on a professional context a lot of times, even in New Age spirituality. You shouldn't have too much because that's egoic, that's selfish. Or in business, the 2%. I'm like, listen, here's the deal. Money is the expression of that which you find meaning in. Yeah. I make it very simple. Money is the expression of that which you find meaning in. And I do things that are very meaningful to me. And money is the natural byproduct, the natural evolution and manifestation to that which brings me meaning. I find that most people have an issue with money because they have an issue with their meaning.
Yes.
They've attached money to their job or to a career or to something that is loathsome to them, that they saw an example which has a meaning attached to it. And therefore, money is that extension of it. My thing is, if I can help sever that, reform it, reframe it a little bit with people, you'll learn to like money. You'll learn to love money because you'll see money as freedom. You will see money as here's the thing. You will also see money as that which brings you significance. I think you really can't, this is just my perspective, I don't think you really can talk about money without talking about self-esteem. I see those as one and the same thing. Because as your esteem rises and as your value shifts and as your impact grows, you start seeing money as one of the, not the only, but one of the biggest tools to expand your significance of who you are and what you're meant to do here on this planet. Money allows for you to expand that mission. So I say this for every spiritual person watching this, especially leaders. You've got to have a great relationship with money if you're going to make a bigger impact. Period.
I can just relate that to my story a little. Like I've been all the way. I've eaten out of dumpsters before, and
wow.
I've been on food stamps, and I've been all the way there, right? And the second that I tapped in, for me, when I had my awakening, when I recognized, I mean, you spoke about esteem, and for me, it was esteem. For me, just for the viewers, was recognizing, oh, there's like a thing I'm supposed to be doing on the planet, and here's what the thing is, and I can trust that thing, and it's gonna happen, even if I resist it. It's gonna happen. Like my mission is gonna show up because it's bigger than me. And there's nothing that I can do to stop it. And once that came in, which honestly, the way that it came in for me was, I remember crying. We're always crying on floors when this happens, right? I don't know what that is. I'm crying on the floor. And I heard Spirit say to me, you need to let go and let me lead you.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to try. And I was like trying to let go, which does not work. So, trying. So
just let go.
Actually did that and let go, which for me was done through sexuality, and I'm sure you have other tools to use it. Then my mission dropped in. And then, money now feels like this big, delicious game where it keeps showing up, and then I'm playing with it, and we're just like moving it around, and right? And it's juicy. There's no longer a constriction. And I see it happen to clients time and time again as well. Once they let go, surrender, and then recognize, oh, I'm supposed to be here, and this is what I'm supposed to do, right? What you were just talking about. How do people figure out? Like I don't know, someone watching might be going, how do I figure out what the hell my mission is? What would you say to them?
I always say this, and it sometimes sounds very weird. I believe that we're always in our mission, always doing our purpose. And I know that sometimes that goes against some of the teaching in spirituality, like you've got to find your purpose, you've got to discover your destiny. I believe that the moment, actually even prior to us coming into this earth scene, but definitely by the time that we start having experiences with life, we start finding the places that we work the best. We start finding the relationships that connect with us the most. We find the areas or problems that we can solve the greatest. I feel that we do that instinctively. I see people do that instinctively. And that's not just in times, if there were an emergency right now, wherever you are, whoever's watching this right now, we would instinctively, without thinking, do what it is we do best.
Right. Right.
There's somebody that's going to say, okay, I'll do this. If there are a fire, I'm really good with pulling people out. There's somebody that's really good at figuring out the fastest way out. There's someone that's going to think, oh, let me get the fire extinguisher. And I'm thinking now, in my house, I'm like, do we even have a fire extinguisher? That's not the first thing I would think about. I'm like, listen, the window is right here. I'm going to jump out.
Right.
Right?
Right.
But again, that's my personality. I'm like, listen, it's burning already. Let's just go. I'm Aries, in and out. We do that instinctively, which means it's almost like what they always say about water always finds an even plane. Let it do what it does. When you're in flow, I believe we're always in flow. You're always in your purpose, always in your destiny. There's nothing to discover. There's nothing to unveil. There is nothing to find. Here's what I do believe. I believe that we ignore that.
Yes.
I believe that we deceive ourselves that it needs to be greater than what it is. I believe that we compare ourselves to what we think it should be based upon what other people are. And that level of deception causes us to feel we're not in purpose. So when it comes to me, I say, listen, one of the things I do as a prophet is I say, listen, I'm helping you to discern that what you're already doing.
Right.
Even if you work, here's the funny thing. Somebody right now is an entrepreneur, is a business owner. That's their mission. They're just doing it at a job.
Right.
They're managing people. They see all the money holes in the company. The reason that they have so many clients at that person's job is because that person is spearheading growth. You're doing everything an entrepreneur would do. You're just doing it at the wrong place.
Right.
And since you don't have the title of business owner, entrepreneur, and you have the title of manager, the illusion is that's not what you are. And I think that's where people get caught up. Or for instance, authors. I'm not an author because I haven't written a book. The book is one of the expressions of what makes you an author. You're an author because you sit down and you write blog posts, and we look at your Facebook feeds, and whenever spirit is speaking to you, you write it down and you journal. That's the spirit of an author. That's your destiny, baby. Just because you don't have a physical book does not disqualify you from your purpose. So it's interesting when I'm working with people a lot, it's like, that's not miraculous.
Right.
At all. And I don't like to teach that somehow and I know why I don't teach that, because I came from a paradigm that said you're a lowly, filthy rag, and that you're nothing, you're sinful, you need to be saved. So there was always this concept of you're not that great. You need somebody else, something else to come in and make you a little bit better. Or unless you go by a specific title, you haven't arrived yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I do know that with me personally, outside of my spiritual perspective, there is a rebellion against teaching like that, because it serves no one any good. Because here's the challenge. If I'm always trying to get you somewhere else, you will always deny the purpose by where you are. And how can you embrace something that hasn't manifested yet when you're dishonoring the place of service that you're already in? Work in that space, honor that space. I have always been a talker. Even when I do podcasts, I have to learn to shut up, Calvin. Let the host talk. And I'm not being dominating. It's just, probably, it's just my personality.
It's just you, yeah.
It's my makeup. I've always been, for me, the prophetic is very much like what's going to happen next. What are the things that people don't see that I see? That in a nutshell, that's all the prophetic. I think Iyanla Vanzant is a prophet. She doesn't go by that, but she's always doing what I do. You don't see yourself. Some good life coaches and therapists do the same thing. And so, that's me. Here's how the future looks for you. Parents do that all the time.
Right.
Not even no 6-year-old kid, and they're saying, I see your future and who you're going to be 20 years from now. I'm helping to guide you through that process. Super prophetic. I've always been doing that. Always.
I love what I'm hearing you say is just like this removal of God, what's the word? Almost like shame for the present moment. And,
yes.
And instead stepping into this deep trust place.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that. I like that. Removing the shame for the energy that you embody right now.
Exactly.
The experience that you embody right now. And where you are is extremely significant. Like for me, I think you said this at the top of the broadcast, you're so bold. Yeah, that came out of working through this process.
Right. Right.
Not running from it. And so I really think that's the nature of it. I think that most people that talk about find your purpose really deep down are dealing with a dynamic of just not being content.
Yeah.
Where they are. I think that's ultimately the case. And I'd rather just say what it is. You're not content. You're dissatisfied. You're disheartened. You feel like you have no significance and purpose right now. I'd rather just call it for what it is versus saying the reason that it sucks right now is because you should be doing A, B, and C.
Right. And then you're like, why are you try to get them into the, why are you here? What are you supposed to do? And they're like, I don't know. And they're trying to make up something that sounds good instead of just being in right now, it's similar to what, I do the whole pleasure right now, not pleasure later. pleasure right now because
Right.
that's where it is.
Right. And so I guess there's a scripture that says that hope defers makes the heart sick. Hope deferred makes the heart sick. And I talk about that a lot, especially when it comes to purpose. And I'll say, you've got to find a way to honor your present. And if you keep living in hope and I wish, and someday, it's going to make your heart sick. And it's going to make your conversation sick. And it's going to make your relationships sick. It's definitely going to make your money sick.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You got to reframe that and start finding a way to honor where you are right now. This kind of came all around with the money conversation. Right. If you're going to be, and I say this to everybody, listen, I think, believe, and know, and teach, if you're a spiritual leader, you need to be filthy, stinking rich.
Yep.
And wealthy and abundant. And I do not just mean, abundant of heart, prosperous of your soul. I mean like cash, like flowing everywhere, and like you open up a drawer, it's like, oh, there's $200. Like, where did that come from? And you have like 3 or 4 bank accounts and CDs and stocks and bonds, and you have more clients. Like that level of like stupid, I bought, 16 of these just because I could.
Right. Yeah.
Kind of wealth. Exactly. And I say that very unapologetically because there's always someone out there that can benefit from your abundance.
Right. Exactly.
And I will say that loud and proud every day. There's someone out there that can always, benefit from your abundance. And, here's what I'll say this. I'm going to shut up because I'll talk about this all day. You know what? One of the things I really think that people hate about money is there's a scripture that says money answers all things.
Uh-huh.
The scriptures, the Bible says the money answers all things, which means that money talks. Right. Money communicates. Here's what I really think that why people hate money. Because money is communicating everything about your life. And when you're in lack and when you're in poverty, it's always communicating you're misaligned.
Yep.
You don't value your significance.
Yep. And you're
been taught that you're a slave.
Totally.
You've been taught that you're supposed to be poor. And money is always communicating that to you. Mm-hmm. And so as a consequence, people get sick and tired of hearing money answering all things in their life. Right. And you got to switch that around and give money a different form of conversation. That's all it is. Yeah. And so now it's like, money loves me. Money is seeking for me. Money is always trying to find me out. Money says, you can have more. You're doing a great job. Here's the benefit of it. Mm-hmm. You've got to switch that around. Right. If you're going to have money say something different to you. Because money is not bad.
Yeah, and I'm seeing this storyline that you were talking about with God and with money, which is, once we stop seeking, right? And once we just recognize that, like, God's right here, money's right here, it's all good. Like, here it is. Like, you're already in your purpose right now. Like, know where you got to go, nothing you need. That's the place, right? That's the place of spiritual union, really, of like, bam, gotcha.
Right. And I think it's selfish to not think like that. I really do.
Yeah.
Because here's why. People that say, I want to be of service and I'm love and light and I'm a minister and I help all these people. Well, you know what? You're going to go by somebody that's homeless tomorrow. Someone's going to call you in 2 days asking to borrow some money. And your answer is more than likely going to be, I wish I could.
Right.
And it's selfish for you not to honor the abundance of money in your life, to be able to say, you know what, you can have the money, you don't even have to pay me back.
Yep. There's no better feeling, right? Like, I love it. Like, just, I'm remembering the days when, my first apartment in Brooklyn had a hole in the ceiling, and when it would rain, the rain would just come down, and, that's what I was living in 12 years ago. And it's just so cool now to be like, you need money here. Like, I went and bought myself some Prada sunglasses the other day just because they were sexy, right? Like, I'm like, why not, right? Why not? Because my spirit wants to dance. My spirit wants to dig in and enjoy life, and as do all of ours, right? And money is just a way to do that. So,
absolutely. We've got to break the cycle of shame. And I think that's what it comes down to, whether we're talking about God, sex, or money. We've kind of created this culture that we shame each other very easily, especially when it comes to sex. Like, sorry, someone is calling me. Why are they calling me? Okay, let's close that down.
When you said sex, they called you. That's
They called me, yeah. And but yeah, we've kind of cultivated this, these generations of people that shame each other. And the funny thing is, I see this a lot, especially in sexuality. It's like, if that's not your thing, that's okay.
Right. It doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be your thing. Like I say, like, okay, if you don't like money, don't have any.
Right.
If you don't like guys, don't have sex with guys. If you don't like threesomes, don't have them.
Right.
Okay. No one is upset at you. And no one is also condemning you for what you do or do not like. If you don't like a particular god or deity or faith, don't go to that temple or mosque or church or yurt. I don't know. Just don't do it. But I think it's odd that I really do. I feel it's really odd that we have these conversations about what other people find pleasure in. I'm like, but nobody invited you to the party.
Right. Right.
It's okay if you don't like it. Now, I love what you do because I'm also about, listen, like I see that you are helping people to find their voice when it comes to sexuality. Express that. So yes, we address those issues, but it's not like we're like, oh, I'm coming against these other people. It's like, no, not my mission. Don't really care.
Right. It's just what's your flavor, and be open and willing that it might change.
It might change.
You might like a temple today and a mosque tomorrow. You might like kinky, crazy cuffs today and have tantra tomorrow. Like, it might change. And when we get really stuck is when we think spirit chooses a path.
Right.
And stay there all the time. It's like, that's not how it works, right?
Right.
Let's just dance more, right? Let's
just dance more. Have fun. It's okay to have fun and just relax. I mean, it's so funny. We just need to like super relax, especially with spirituality. It's like, guys, and gals, like, is it really that deep? Like I posted this morning on Facebook. I said, oh yeah, God really wants to send you in hell so God can babysit you for all of eternity for something that you did wrong. Like, really?
Like he really cares that much, right? Like,
it's not that deep.
It's not that
deep. Have fun.
Yeah.
And I believe if you have more fun, because I've said this, especially when it comes to more like leadership in other religious contexts, I said, listen, if you're not having fun in your faith, please don't go out there trying to convert people into it, because just nobody wants to do that. It's just boring. Why would we do that? Same thing in sex, or same thing with money. If like I see business coaches that, oh, you got to struggle to get money. I'm like, why would anybody want to be a business owner then? It's just that's just horrible.
Right.
Have more fun.
Life isn't that, like, that's why I said earlier, like when my brain is in the place of whatever, I know I'm living it. I'm living life. When I'm like, it's all good, because that's the reality of it. It's all good. Like, everything can be all good. And that's a beautiful world to be in. So
absolutely.
And
I'm not saying don't be responsible. Like people that know me, I'm an extremely serious person. I laugh here and I laugh a lot, but I'm extremely serious about, especially my craft. I eat, sleep, breathe this.
Right.
Extremely serious about it.
Right.
So I'm not telling people to like not be serious or take responsibility for it. I think what we're really saying is just the limitations or lack that most people are probably experiencing is because of the limitation itself, is that you're limiting your exposure to ecstasy.
Yeah.
That's probably the best way to say it.
Yeah. Or I like to call it, there's a pleasure ceiling that you're bumping up against, right? You're stuck, you can't find pleasure past like just little like TV joy. Like, let's move further up so that our pleasure quotient can be higher, right? And then everything falls in. So I love quotient. Just to wrap it up, because we've only got a few more minutes. My God, I could talk about this with you. I love your passion and my passion. They're like together.
I know.
To wrap it up, is there anything that is in this present moment that's channeling for you, that's coming through for you, that you feel that the viewers need to hear?
I really feel that, well, one, thank you. It's absolutely, it's been great. um, I really feel like a lot of this conversation for many people is going down to shame, just releasing themselves from that energy of doubting themselves. I think that a lot of people that are watching this live, definitely by the replay, they're experiencing just huge shifts, like from, if I would say it this way, like shame to significance.
Yeah.
If I were to say, like, I feel like Spirit is really channeling that particular phrase, like going from shame into that which is significant, that you don't have to hide behind what is being, pushed on you philosophically, personally, or even patriarchally in your life, that you can kind of really shift that you're not weird, that you're not odd, maybe a little peculiar, but that's good. That holds a purpose, for sure. And it's very interesting too, because I feel like there's somebody right now watching. I don't have the thing up. I closed it, especially because one of my friends called me, Facebook Messenger. I feel like someone's right now being released from a lot of shame, especially that came from their husband, that affected a lot of their growth in spirituality. And it's very interesting because I feel like you're probably going to end up mentoring her at some point. and I really feel like whoever that is, they've kind of been waiting and they've kind of been on a journey. And this year will be kind of their year to unlock that process a lot with them. And yeah, it's interesting. I feel like most of it was emotional. And I feel like most of the past relationship that I'm speaking of, that really ended. And now they're gonna, I keep hearing like you're gonna end up being their sexual mentor in this space, and that's gonna be good for them. I really feel like whoever that is, that this was, maybe they were on that precipice and they were on that edge, and this is kind of okay, that's what I needed to hear space, and they already know it, so it's not like it's this new information to them. Spirit has already been speaking to them as well. And I would also say, I feel like some of that with them particularly is probably going to go into a level of intuitive work. I'd say that as well. I would not be surprised if they end up going into more mediumship, really, quite honestly. I feel like their grandmother probably has already been speaking to them anyway. So this has been a dynamic of them shifting through that journey anyway. And it's all good. So whoever that's for, you probably feel like you're going crazy, and that's a good catalyst for change. You're on the right path. So for whoever that's for. And
thank you.
that was for a female. Then there's a guy. I feel like he's international, so he wouldn't be in the States, U.S. States. That works a full-time job, and he's been wanting to go more in spiritual practice, entrepreneurship, business ownership. He has a strong healing path for him as well. It's funny because I see him almost like in the jungle, which is very interesting, very tribal, very shamanic, very healing nature for who that's for. And I feel like it's been I call it like dabbling, like the experience, like going to experiences, maybe retreats, and almost hiding behind those as a way of having the experience but not taking the leadership to say that he can do this.
Right.
That will happen, I feel like, next year. But the journey will start this year with him actively going into that space. So he needs, I would say, pulling out of the participant space to more the leadership space.
Beautiful.
Very good, very shamanic, very healing in nature. I feel like it's going to have some music elements to it as well with this particular person. And so I would almost encourage him to pursue both, like the healing aspect, but also like tonal music with it as well. So
gorgeous. Thank you. Well, we only have a minute left, so I'm super appreciative. Yeah, I've got to run for a client. And
no worries.
Will you post in our Facebook Lives all of like the ways people can contact you?
Yeah. Sure.
whatever else is coming up. You guys, Calvin, as you can see, has it, and you want some of it. So thank you so much for being on, and I'll be on your page coming up soon talking
Yes,
about.
I think we said April the 1st
I don't know
ish.
what we said. We'll
Let everyone know.
Yeah, we'll let you know. So this conversation to be continued. Calvin,
Yes.
I adore you. Thank you so much for coming on. Yay.
Thank you, love.
And thank you to everyone watching and replay.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, hashtag replay if you're watching the replay, and
Yes.
Calvin will come in and answer questions for you if we can. So thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.